Here's the brief news from the world over this week. Pope Francis was front and center on the worldwide migration debate. In a speech on Tuesday to an international forum on migration and peace, the Pope called it a duty that humanitarian corridors be open to protect migrants and refugees. He further repeated his recent denunciation of populist rhetoric as well as self-centeredness that are closing doors in the faces of migrants. The Pope tied the issue of migration to economic inequality and climate change. He demanded justice and redress for migrants and the poor, who he says have been exploited by the wealthy. He said, quote, "One group of individuals cannot control half of the world's resources. We cannot allow for persons and entire groups of people to have a right only to gather the remaining crumbs. The world," he said, "can no longer sustain unacceptable economic inequality that destroys the planet and forces people to leave their homes." And President Donald Trump this week laid out his administration's new approach to illegal immigration and the estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants already living in the U.S. The Department of Homeland Security released some new measures, including plans to hire thousands of additional enforcement agents, expedited removal for criminal immigrants nationwide, and engaging local law enforcement to help make arrests. Trump has left in place President Obama's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which allows most of those who were brought into the country illegally as children to stay and obtain work permits. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer had this to say.
The president is empowering DHS to carry out the immigration laws currently on the books. The memo regarding the executive order Border Security and Immigration Enforcement Improvements outlines the steps that DHS will take to secure the nation's southern border, prevent further illegal immigration, and to repatriate illegal immigrants swiftly, consistently, and humanely.
More on all of this later in the show. Meanwhile, Europe's open migration laws continue to contribute to the crisis in the Mediterranean. The bodies of at least 74 African migrants washed ashore in western Libya on Tuesday after the engine of their inflatable boat was stolen by traffickers. Another 12 migrants are presumed to have drowned. A sole survivor was transferred to a hospital in a coma. And the Italian Coast Guard rescued more than 600 Central Mediterranean migrants earlier in the week. The migrants, including 70 women and children, were adrift on a fishing boat and a rubber dinghy trying to reach European coasts. According to the United Nations, 12,355 migrants have arrived by sea in Europe in the first 6 weeks of this year. And on the trafficking route between Libya and Italy alone, nearly 400 have died. And 2 Catholic bishops in California are raising their voices about the stricter immigration policies and the Trump administration, each with a different point of view. At a Vatican-sponsored event on economic inequality in Modesto, California, San Diego Bishop Robert McElroy called for people of all faiths to become disruptors in response to tougher immigration enforcement and other political issues. In a fiery 20-minute speech, McElroy went after President Donald Trump directly, saying President Trump said he was the candidate of disruption. Now we must all become disruptors. Meanwhile, Chaldean Catholic Bishop of the Western U.S., Bawai Soro, spoke out in support of the Trump administration's temporary ban on travel from 7 Muslim countries. In an op-ed for the San Diego Union Tribune, Soro, himself a refugee from Iraq, said that coming to America is, quote, not a right, but a privilege. And President Trump's executive order is justified because of the problem of Islamic jihad. And a federal judge ruled Tuesday that Texas can't cut off Medicaid dollars to Planned Parenthood. In his decision, U.S. District Judge Sam Sparks of Austin excoriated Texas for not providing, quote, any evidence of Planned Parenthood wrongdoing. As in other states, Texas health officials accused Planned Parenthood officials of misrepresenting their position to investigators following the release of secretly recorded videos that purportedly show Planned Parenthood involved in the trafficking of aborted baby body parts. Texas is now the 6th state where federal courts have kept Planned Parenthood eligible for Medicaid reimbursements. Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton said in a released statement that no taxpayer should have to subsidize this repugnant and illegal conduct. Texas is promising an appeal. And Norma McCorvey, the anonymous plaintiff who sought the legal right to an abortion in the Roe v. Wade case, but later devoted her life to the pro-life cause, died this past weekend at the age of 69. McCorvey, known as Jane Roe, sued the state of Texas for not permitting her to have an abortion. That case led to the Supreme Court ruling, which created a constitutional right to abortion. After working at an abortion center, McCorvey experienced a conversion, first becoming an evangelical Christian and later a Roman Catholic. She said she had been exploited by Roe v. Wade attorneys who were fixated on legalizing abortion on demand. McCorvey claimed that she was persuaded by those attorneys to lie and say that she had been raped and needed an abortion. She spent the last years of her life speaking out against the procedure. Norma McCorvey died in an assisted living facility in Katy, Texas. May she rest in peace. And another major death this week, Michael Novak, the American author, theologian, and one of the most influential Catholic political thinkers of his time, has died after a battle with cancer. He was 83. In his best-known work, The Spirit of Democratic Capitalism, Novak offered a vigorous moral defense of capitalism through the lens of Catholic social teaching. His argument that human freedom was tied to free markets drew the attention of British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, U.S. President Ronald Reagan, and the Pope at the time, St. John Paul II. His work influenced the late pontiff's economic encyclical, Centesimus Annus. In the early 80s, he served as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. He appeared on this program repeatedly over the years, and he was always enlightening. You answer some of Christopher Hitchens' irreducible objections. The first one is that faith wholly misrepresents the origins of man and the cosmos. You would say what to that?
The way Judaism and Christianity teach us to think about human beings, the centrality of our liberty, that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness grasps it not. It's our choice. Mm-hmm. God wants our friendship, but given freely. That experience of liberty in us is the sign of God's presence in us. Mm-hmm. There are several different ways in which we become aware of the experience of God, just in understanding ourselves, and that's the big difference.
The author of more than 50 books, Novak had taught at Harvard, Stanford, Notre Dame, and Ave Maria universities. Most recently, he was teaching at the Catholic University of America when he fell ill and passed away on February 17th. May Michael Novak rest in peace. And we're a little more than a week away. March 7th, the sequel to my Will Wilder book for young readers, Will Wilder 2, The Lost Staff of Wonders, hits bookstores. It is so perfect for you young readers and the young at heart. For just this week, and only this week, if you pre-order the book and send me a receipt or proof of purchase, I'll send you a signed book plate and a limited edition bookmark. This is the last week, I promise. Email me at Raymond@RaymondArroyo.com and write Will Wilder 2 in the subject line. Be sure to include your address. All the info is at RaymondArroyo.com, as is the partial Will Wilder book tour schedule. I'll be in Buffalo, Cleveland, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Denver. So make sure to come on down, make plans, and bring your kids. You, Will, and I will have a great time.